Okay. Hey everyone, I'm finally back. So back from a week of traveling overseas. Hopefully maybe next year I can do Computex. I don't know. It depends on how big this channel gets and if there's budget to do that. But that is something that I'm looking forward to. For those that are new to the channel, we cover a lot of this tech stuff every Thursdays. So this is Tech Thursdays, the live show that I do every week. Although last week there was no show because I was actually overseas in Japan, for those that did not know, or those of you that are first time viewers, or you haven't really kept up with the channel. So now that I'm back, I guess the only thing that I really missed out on was the Intel ARC B580 launch. Because I wasn't here, I was unable to get one at launch, and they are currently kind of sold out everywhere. So I'm not able to do a review, unfortunately. The only one that I really kind of want is the one that you guys can see here on the screen. So this is the Intel Limited Edition. I am going to try to get one of these from either Microcenter or Newegg whenever they get restocks of them. But yeah, so far the reviews for that GPU have been pretty positive. Intel HGZ, Intel saving low-end GPUs. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, for $250, this is a good deal. $250 gets you 12 gigabyte VRAM. This GPU surprisingly does pretty decent for 1440p, which is actually very good for the price point. You typically don't run across a $250 GPU that can handle most games at 1440p. That being said, if it can handle a game at 1440p, that does imply that it can technically play the game at 4K using XESS upscaling quality preset. So it does have that capability too. That being said, I would not recommend it for 4K. I'm just saying that if it can handle 1440p, it can technically handle a 4K upscaled game. But yeah, and yeah, as Nicholas just pointed out, so with the new Battle Mage generation, and this applies not only Battle Mage. The nice thing is with the new SDKs, the new graphics drivers from Intel, they finally bring Intel up to speed or on par, or I guess at parity with nvidia and AMD from a feature standpoint. There is one thing that they are missing still, which is virtual. You can't use virtual. What is it? Virtual super resolution, or I forget what the NVIDIA one's called. But AMD has something called VSR, and NVIDIA's one is called DSR, dynamic super resolution, or something. So Intel still, to my knowledge, does not have that. But and the reason why that's useful is if you're somebody who wants to test, for example, if you want to test 4K, but you don't have a 4K monitor, you can use virtual super resolution on an AMD graphics card or dynamic super resolution on an NVIDIA card to simulate a higher resolution than your native monitor's display. So that is something that Intel still doesn't have, which is kind of weird. They still don't have that. But they do have frame gen now, so I mean, yeah, they got frame gen, which they kind of needed it, to be honest. So I guess that was a higher priority for them. But yeah, this one does seem like a good GPU overall. I really want one of these, but I only want the limited edition. So I'm only going to try to obtain the limited edition either through Microcenter or through Newegg, whichever one gets a restock. But because I was out of the country, I was unable to get one because I went to my local Microcenter today and I asked them, because even though the website said out of stock, I asked them, hey, can you check if you have any of these Intel B580s? And the guy was like, I know we don't have any. And I said, did you ever have any of the Intel one at launch? He's like, yeah, we had like 2 and we sold out of them instantly. So that's the only one that I'm going to try to get. So Gunir, Sparkle, ASRock, Acer, whatever the other ones are. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not going to get any of those. So only the Intel one. That's the only one that I will attempt to try to get. So this is the one. So the cool thing about it, actually, let's go to the Tech Power Up review because they have some good pictures of it. So the pictures and teardown on the Tech Power Up. So one thing, they are doing the flow-through design, which is actually a very good design, which means that it runs quieter than it normally would because the second fan basically pushes the air straight through like a chimney style. So it looks very similar to the previous one. This one is either basically the A770 and the A750 use the same design. The main difference was the A770 had an RGB light bar that goes all the way around the card. The B580 is more like the A750 in that it does not have any RGB. It does have the Intel ARC logo on the side that does illuminate with white LEDs, just like the A750 did. Although this is a single 8-pin. So I really, really want one of these. I just want one just to have one. See, it's like... but yeah, I am going to try to get one of these from either Microcenter or Newegg. Whichever one gets one, I'm just going to get it as soon as it comes out or as soon as it comes back in stock. You like the B580 fans. So this is the GPU that I would probably put in the Asus X870E Crosshair Hero. I would replace the, what do I have in there right now? I have an A380 from ASRock. I have an ASRock Challenger A380. I would take that out, and I would put this in the second slot at the bottom of the motherboard. So this would be a second graphics card. I would have this plus either the RTX 4080 Super or the Radeon 7900 XTX. So I would use this as a secondary GPU, not a primary GPU. So that way I could like offload whatever, like encoding or whatever to this, and I can let the GPU do the game rendering at 4K. The other GPU, the AMD or the NVIDIA one. So that is basically what I would do. It's a side grade at best from a 460. No, if you have a 460, you don't need this. This is not for someone who already has a GPU of similar price tier competitiveness. This would be for someone who doesn't... This, you know who I was thinking this is for? This is for somebody who is still on an RX 480 or an RX 580. This GPU reminds me of the RX 480 from AMD from 2016. Because that was a $240... I think it was actually $220. Well, it was $200 for the 4GB RX 480, and then it was, I think, $240, $239 or something for the 8GB version. So this would be good for anyone who is still on an RX 580 or an RX 480. This would be a really, really good upgrade for those people because this is significantly faster than an RX 580 at 1080p and 1440p, even though the 480 was never cut out to be used for 1440p. But yeah, this is like a really good upgrade for those people. It's like, just to put things into perspective, actually, let's actually do some comparisons here. So if we do RX 480, yeah, this GPU was a 256-bit, 256 8GB GDDR5, 32 ROPS. This is a 1080p graphics card from 2016. June 29th, 2016. I went into Microcenter on that day and I bought this exact reference card. This is still the graphics card that I use when debugging, troubleshooting motherboards. Like, I literally pop this into the motherboard and I test with this GPU. So this is like my debug GPU. So if I get the B580, maybe that will replace this. You know why? Because this is a single 6-pin. It's a single 6-pin. This rules out like power supply, OCP issues or whatever. You know, so this is why I use this as a debug card. It's also a blower style, which is the most reliable. The fan will never die. So this is basically the same sort of fan that you would find in a car's air conditioning system. So that's the reason why it's super durable. Yeah, so this thing, if we look at where the if the B580 will even show up on this list. Maybe it's too new. It would show up somewhere around... Oh, there it is, right there. 141% faster. The B580 is 141% faster than an RX 480. So if somebody is still on this, and they've been on this for what, like potentially 8 years at this point, maybe even a little bit more than 8 years, like 8.5, almost 8.5 years maximum, but realistically probably 7 years, 6 to 8 years, somewhere in that range. Remember what I said. I always say, you know, people typically upgrade on a 3-year, 5-year, or 7-year upgrade cycle. Well, the B580 is the perfect choice for someone who is on a 7-year upgrade cycle and they're still on this and they're thinking of doing an entire new full system upgrade, because pretty much if they're still on a motherboard from this era, that motherboard doesn't support resizable bar. So they would definitely need to upgrade the motherboard to get the full potential out of the B580, because it requires resizable bar for optimal performance. So yeah, a full system upgrade for someone who is on a 7-year-old computer, either an RX 480 or a GTX 1060, which is similar to this, this would be a massive 140% increase in the performance. They gain frame gen, they gain proper machine learning upscaling. They basically get the entire upgrade. So this is actually very, very good. For $250, and the funny thing is, this GPU was like a $240 GPU. This is a $250 GPU. So despite all the inflation, you wait long enough and you can still stay in the same price range when you do your upgrade and still get a massive performance improvement. So yeah, this is actually, it's interesting seeing this, but yeah, like this is definitely for that 7-year upgrade person. Someone who doesn't spend a lot on the GPU, and they end up keeping the computer way longer than people who upgrade more frequently. Because the logic sounds weird, but the reality is somebody who spends $1,000 on a graphics card is more likely to upgrade more frequently than someone who spends $250 on a graphics card. Now, I know that sounds weird to say that, but that is true. That is 100% true. People who buy 60 class cards like this tend to hold on to it way longer than people who buy like 80 series cards. That sounds strange. You would think, well, wouldn't the person with the higher end GPU skip a generation or hold on? Yeah, they would skip a generation. But the person who buys a 60 class skips like 2 or 3 generations, maybe even 4 generations. So that's how it typically goes. So yeah, the lower end of the market is typically for the people who hold on to the GPUs longer. It sounds really weird, but that is the truth. That statistics have proven that that is the way it is. Think about your average tech enthusiast who has an RTX 4090. A lot of them are probably going to either hold on to it and then upgrade either 6 months from now, 8 months from now, a year from now to a 5090, or they're just going to get the 5090 immediately when it launches. You see what I'm saying? That's typically how it is. Same deal with those who have an RX 7900 XTX. The people with 7900 XTX are probably going to upgrade to the 5090. They're more likely to upgrade more frequently than someone who has a RX, like a 480, or although those people are probably going to upgrade because that's so old. But like if someone's on an RX 6800 XT or an RTX 3080, they're going to question whether they should upgrade with the 50 series and AMD's new stuff. But anyone who is on an older piece of hardware, they've probably already upgraded if they're in that class of hardware, or they are considering it. So, but yeah, this is a really good GPU. I really want one of these. This is really good for 1080p. NVIDIA hates customers. Wait, what? 5700G, 64 gigabyte. You're going to get 5700X 3D or Ryzen 9 5900X. Yeah, those are very popular in Japan for some reason. I don't know what it is about Zen 3. I don't know what it is about Zen 3, guys. Like, Zen 3? I don't know, man. Zen 3 to me sounds old. But I don't know. It is still so popular. I don't understand why. The same thing with Intel's 12th gen. For some reason, Intel Alder Lake and Zen 3 X3D are like so popular right now. 5700 X3D, 5800 X3D, which I think is discontinued, and then the Intel 12700K, Intel i5 12600K, 12900K. Those CPUs, I don't know why, like the 3-year-old Intel CPU and the 2 to 4 year AMD CPUs are like so popular. I don't understand why, but they just are. Zen 3 is old, but still good. Zen 3 X3D is actually still really competitive, though, in gaming, which is hilarious. Considering, see, the funny thing is, Zen 3 X3D proves that, like, a lot of cache can mask memory bottleneck issues. Because one of the things that's starting to show up now with modern games, we see this more and more with newer games, CPUs that are paired up with DDR5 are starting to pull ahead of the CPUs that are stuck with DDR4. So, like, the best example I can give you is if someone has like an Intel 12, 13, or 14th gen, and they're on DDR4, they are missing out on a couple of percentage points of performance because they are bottlenecked at the memory bandwidth with DDR4 versus if they were on a DDR5 motherboard with the exact same CPU. We're starting to see this more and more with newer games. But the hilarious thing is, like, Zen 3 is exclusively DDR4. You cannot pair a Ryzen 5000 with a DDR5 motherboard. It has to be DDR4. So with X3D basically kind of like minimizes the memory bottleneck, if that makes sense, or at least it masks it, so you don't see it as noticeable as you would, like, if you were running like a non-X3D, like a 5800X, for example. That would be more like a 10700K, 11700K, somewhere around there. And those are all DDR4 based systems. But what's funny is all these newer games still recommend these DDR4 based CPUs. Like, I think there was one game that I was planning to talk about. I forgot what it was. But there was one game, I think it was... Hold on. Did somebody message me the thing? Or maybe I saw it in... Was it Indiana Jones? Was it? I don't think it was Indiana Jones. I forgot what game it was. Oh, yeah. Final Fantasy VII on PC. Yeah, it was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC, because that game is coming out next year. That one... Actually, let's look at that, if it's even in here. Do they have an article? Okay. Okay, so Rebirth, here it is. So check this out. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. The recommended CPU for every single one of these, minimum, recommended, ultra, is DDR4 based CPUs. Zen 3 and the old Intels that are stuck on DDR4. They don't even have a choice. Like 10th gen Intel doesn't get a choice. It can't do DDR5. So it's basically stuck. So basically, they're still saying, oh, I mean, you only need a DDR4, but I think this is a thing where I think it's creating a false sense of security for those that are on these older CPUs, because I'm seeing a lot of these newer games that have come out in the last 2 years. A lot of them have been very CPU heavy. Star Wars Jedi Survivor was extremely CPU bound. The Last of Us was also CPU heavy. Final Fantasy 16 was also CPU demanding. Dragon's Dogma 2 was insanely CPU bound. Like, the most CPU bound game this year, for sure, was Dragon's Dogma 2. Like, these CPUs, 5700X and 10700, these two CPUs run Dragon's Dogma 2 like garbage. Like, these two are both straight up garbage. These are like 35 to 40 FPS CPUs for that game in Burnworth. So bad. You can be on a 4090 and you're going to be getting 35 FPS at minimum graphic settings in Dragon's Dogma 2 with these CPUs. So I feel like, well, it's like, yeah, this one game doesn't need DDR5 or it doesn't need the newer CPUs, but these are getting long in the tooth. That being said, going back to what I was saying at the beginning, Zen 3 is still very popular and Intel 12 Gen is still very popular. Despite all the hype with the 9800X 3D. So, I like how they put Intel ARC A580 on the minimum one. So that one's it actually made the list for minimum for 1080p 30. They're saying that, I don't know how accurate that is though. They're saying for minimum, the minimum graphics quality low, 1080p 30 frames per second. You need a Radeon RX 6600 or an RTX 2060. What? That doesn't... What? Oh, and the A580. Yeah, I feel like someone just put stuff here. Did they actually test these? They definitely did not test the A580. They probably put this chart together before that was even out, and they just slapped that on there at the last minute. So 16 gigabyte, 155 gigabyte SSD, GPU memory of 12 gigabyte or greater if a 4K monitor is used. I don't understand what they mean by this. Why do they put this asterisk at the bottom here? It says GPU memory of 12 gigabytes or greater recommended if a 4K monitor is used. Why would that apply if someone was playing the game at 1080p? And then they basically say the same thing. Well, they say for 4K you need 16 gigabytes or more if you're playing the game at 4K. 16 gigs or more. And then if you're playing at... See, they don't even tell you 1440p. No, they don't even give you 1440p. I told you guys, developers don't care about 1440p. They don't do proper specs for 1440p. Look at this. They do 1080p low, 30 FPS, 1080p medium, 60 FPS, and 2160p, 60 FPS, graphics quality high. Not ultra, not medium, high. High for 4K, medium for 1080, and low for 1080. Guess what? 1440p? You want to play the game at 1440p? Sorry! You got to keep guessing until the game comes out. So, that's basically what they've got. So, they're saying a 6700 XT and an RTX 2070 is recommended for 1080p 60. So, you have to have this tier of hardware to play this game at 1080p. Oh, and by the way, 12 gigabytes of memory, 12 gigabytes of GPU memory. Well, the 2070s already fail. That doesn't have 12 gigabytes. The 6700 XT does have 12 gigabytes, so it hits that benchmark. It has that checkbox. But yeah, it's funny. It's like, okay, 1080p 30 is for Windows 10, and 1080p 60 is for Windows 11. And then, again, apparently system memory doesn't matter. You can get away with running the game at 16 gigs of RAM, like on your main PC, yeah. 16 gigs of RAM, yeah, that sounds so good. 16 gigs of RAM sounds so 2011. Alright, anyway, January 23rd. I will admit, this game is coming out a lot sooner than I thought. I thought this game would come out in the summer of next year or late spring. I was thinking anywhere late May to like end of July was when I thought this game was actually going to come out on PC. So it is nice to see that it's coming out almost a year. It's literally 11 months. When the game comes out, it will be 11 months since the game came out on the PlayStation 5. So as much as I like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I don't know. I guess I will be able to dedicate February to playing through this again on the PC. I just don't feel like playing through it a whole. It's a very long game, and I've already beaten the entire game on the PS5. So I will most likely be getting the PC version though. So we will cover this. Just like I did the playthrough for Final Fantasy 16 on PC, I will also cover Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC. I don't know if I'll play through the whole game, but I will at least look at it. So that is one game that we will expect to see on this channel. And the nice thing about it coming out when it does is this gives me essentially a month to play this game. So basically February and the end of January. Because we all know what's going to happen at the end of February. Basically, Monster Hunter Wilds is coming out at the end of February, and all of March on this channel is basically going to be Monster Hunter March. It's going to be Monster Hunter March on this channel. I think some of the most successful gaming live streams that I did on this channel were the Monster Hunter Wilds open beta test. We tested a whole bunch of systems, and I plan to do the exact same format for the actual game when it comes out. Only this time around, I will be playing through the entire story, and we'll be doing a lot of multiplayer content, and whatever they want to add, like limited time FOMO events that they'll do. I'm sure they'll do that to get extra weapons, armor, whatever, the Palico skins, all that stuff. So we'll be doing a whole bunch of Monster Hunter through March. So that gives me February for Final Fantasy VII. Hey Rio, yeah, I think some of my viewers wanted me to talk about the Japan trip. I do have some pictures. I can go through it. I was basically gone for like 8 to 9 days. So we can transition to talking about that if you guys want me to discuss that. What else was I gonna say? I guess we're pretty much done with the B580. Overall, it's an excellent value. It's a good GPU. I am going to try to get the limited edition as soon as I can. I would have gotten one if I had not been in Japan. I tried to buy one in Japan. Guess what? They didn't have any. I think like on the last day that I was able to go to the Microcenter equivalent to TSUKUMO, they had like one Acer, and I didn't want it. So, because I'm only looking for this one specifically. So, yeah, yeah, like and the prices of electronics, like foreign electronics, computer components and stuff in Japan is insanely expensive compared to in the US. So I don't know how it is in other parts of the world, but man, the Japanese have it pretty rough in terms of the pricing of the hardware. Like if you're someone who is like if you're a tech enthusiast in Japan, it is rough because first of all, the yen to dollar ratio, the yen is so weak right now. And so you have that. So that means that you're earning less money relative to like someone who's being paid in US dollars for the exact same job. And then on top of that, the electronic stuff, your hobby stuff like GPUs, CPUs, all that stuff is way more expensive than it would be if you like went out of Japan and flew down to like Taiwan, for instance, and bought the stuff there. I'm assuming it's cheaper in Taiwan, although I don't know. I'm just saying that because like Taiwan, a lot of these companies are based out of Taiwan, like Asus, MSI, Gigabyte, ASRock. They're literally all Taiwanese companies. So I would imagine that you could buy like a specific motherboard from Taiwan and it would be cheaper or comparable to what it is in the US, but Japan, it's like way expensive. Like there was one thing that I wanted to buy. I wasn't sure. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Go to the website here. Let me go to one of them. So this is the Japanese Microcenter equivalent. So let's see. I want Shipiukura. So I want. I was looking for. You know what's funny? You can't buy Deep Cool in America because of the sanctions. But guess what? Japan, you can buy all the Deep Cool you want. They still have it. I was tempted to buy another AK620 because they had them, but it's and the prices are actually pretty good too. But the one I was really looking for here, let's do 48. There's this one air cooler that you can't get in America that I was so tempted to buy. I saw Noctua. They had the Noctua D15, but it is super expensive there. Because I guess they're importing it from Austria or whatever. So I don't understand how their tariff system works. There it is. The RZ820. This is I think this is like a Chinese manufactured cooler. I think it's from China. It's either from Taiwan or China. Mainland China. I think it's China actually. But I really wanted this thing. This thing is so heavy. And I like the way it looked. It has a light. It has like a little RGB LED on it. This thing, I think, is like 8 heat pipes. 2, 4, 6. Yeah, 8 heat pipes. And it was heavy. I picked up the box. This thing was big. I held up the AK620 box from Deep Cool, and then I held up the RZ820. This thing was like way heavier than the AK620. And I was thinking like, is this safe for the motherboard to hold this thing for years and years without cracking? Because this thing is huge. I really wanted this. Because I saw like another Japanese tech channel. Like there was a channel similar to mine, but it's a Japanese YouTuber. Like he was doing a video about this, and I saw this, and I was like, man, okay, if I go there, I might get this. But it was too heavy. It's also not cheap. You can see 18,117 yen, so that's roughly probably like $150 or somewhere around there. So it's kind of pricey for an air cooler, but it is a nice looking air cooler, and it is big. It is so big that if I put this on the Godlike, like you wouldn't be able to see the dragon on the shroud because it would cover it up completely. And then you would barely be able to eat. You couldn't see the RAM. That would be completely covered up. And you could barely see the LED screen that shows like the CPU temperature stuff on there. So, yeah, I kind of wanted to get this. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe something similar will get OEM'd in the States by like, I wish like Corsair or somebody would OEM this from the manufacturer and like start selling it in America, because this sort of stuff, it's always interesting to see the other sort of brands that you don't have easy access to in the States, because not every place has access to the same supply chain, the same like markets and stuff. So it is cool seeing like different sort of hardware. When I was looking at the AIOs, all the AIOs are pretty much the same ones that you can find in America. So there was a lot of like NZXT Kraken, and I think there was some Corsair stuff, and then there was the I don't think I saw Arctic Freezer. I don't recall seeing Arctic Freezer there. So here's Corsair, MSI. Yeah, you see the motherboard brands. Deep Cool has theirs. There was a lot of Deep Cool though. It's hilarious. Oh, there's Arctic Freezer. So the funny thing is part of me wondered, like, because the shops had so much Deep Cool, I was thinking to myself, I wonder because of America's sanctions on Deep Cool, I wonder if Deep Cool's just sending more stuff into other countries like Japan, where they're not sanctioning them. So it's like they're giving them more supply, which means the buyers or the distributors that are buying from Deep Cool direct, they're buying like bulks of this, and then like the store, like this one for example, will buy its own chunk of inventory. Deepcool, I would assume, is giving them a better, higher volume discount because they have way more stock available because they're not able to sell in America anymore. So it's always interesting to see how that works out. But yeah, there was a lot of Deepcool. I was so tempted to buy like another Deepcool air cooler and just stick it in my check-in bag or whatever. But yeah, that shopping there, it was pretty much the same experience as in America, except the prices are like really high for the local Japanese people. Like it's really expensive, a lot of this stuff. Like if we look at some of the CPUs, like here's the CPU prices. So like the 9950X is, so that's roughly, man, that's a lot. That, so what I always do in my head is I shave off 2 zeros, so that'll be like $1,128 US dollars. But because the yen is super weak, it's actually significantly less than $1,100. So in my mind, I'm gonna guess that this is around like 700 something, 800 something, somewhere around there. And then they have this one. The 9800X3D is $888. So whatever that ends up being in US, that'd be like like $550 to $600, somewhere in there if I had to guess. And then they have 8,000, then they got 7,000. What's interesting, they sold through like a lot of their 7,000. They don't have much 7,000. You can see they've only got those. So they're gung ho on like Zen 5. And then for Intel, oh, you know what I was trying to find? Like for the CPUs, I was trying to find Intel CPU. I was trying to find the Intel Core Ultra 9 because you can't buy one in America for some reason. And they didn't have it. They didn't have it either. I was trying to buy this, the Core Ultra 9 285K, because I couldn't buy one. Microcenter never has them, ever. They've literally never had them. The whole time, since the CPU launched, Microcenter has never gotten the Ultra 9, or at least the one that I go to, has never had it in stock. I went there again today, and I asked them if they have it. And guess what? They don't have it. So I tried to find it in Japan. I went to like Dospara, TSUKUMO, some other specialty store. None of them had it. None of them had it. It was all like, I was like, man, what is going on with the Core Ultra 9? It's not like people are like jumping over each other or stepping on each other to try to buy this, but like I guess Intel's not manufacturing it or something. There's some weird thing going on because it's like you can never buy this CPU. But the other ones were available. Like they had the Ultra 7, they had the Ultra 5. Same thing in America. You could buy either one of these from Microcenter if you wanted them. Like they have them. So the only one they don't have is the 9. I don't know what the deal is with that. But yeah, oh, that's cool. They've got some bundles. They've got bundles like Microcenter. Yeah, they got the bundles. So, but anyway, that was kind of like, I didn't end up buying any electronic stuff because, first of all, it was so overpriced compared to America. And second of all, the only thing that really interested me was that one CPU cooler. But that CPU cooler was in this giant box, and I was like, I can't really take it out of the box and put it in my check-in bag because I don't want it to get like, damaged or whatever on the way back. So I ended up not buying any electronics while I was there or any computer components. I don't think it has anything to do with the demand. I think it has something to do with Intel. Because I asked somebody, like, what the problem is, or like, why is this never in stock? And it was one of the people at Micro Center, and they told me that, as far as they know, the problem is not with procurement, which means it's not somebody on Micro Center's side that's saying, no, we don't want to order this because there's no demand. That's not the problem. He's saying the problem is from the Intel side. For some reason, Intel's not making it available. So there's some problem with like supply. Like there's something wrong from the manufacturer side. So like Intel now in stock website said Amazon. I don't believe that. Amazon, I would not buy these from Amazon. The Amazon is full of like scammers trying to sell, like 4090s for like $30 from China or something. Yeah, no. If I'm gonna buy the CPU like this, it has to come from either Microcenter or Newegg. Like, no. I don't believe that because I don't know anyone who did not pre-order this that has been able to find one. Legit. Like those listings on Amazon are like usually third-party people that are like, I don't know what they're doing. So, but anyway, trust me, I've been trying to get one of these for a while and I've had no luck. So, but yeah, other than that, it's pretty comparable to the US. I would say the PC DIY, the tech enthusiast market in Japan is significantly smaller than in the West. So, and it's probably because there's space constrained, especially if you live in the city. So the store is pretty much stacked on top of itself. It's like I think it was like 5 different stories or levels or floors. So it was 5 or 6 floors tall, and none of the floors were that big. So it's like and the aisles are also very, very narrow. So yeah, it's pretty rough being like a tech enthusiast in Japan. Newegg last stocked it on December 6th. Okay. Thoughts on B650E PG Riptide? I would rather get X870. B650E and X870 are basically the same. I would rather get X870 because it's newer and it already has BIOSes that support all of the Zen 5 CPUs, including the X3D CPU. So like B650 is fine if you can get it for really cheap, but you're gonna have to update the BIOS. If you're gonna pair it up with a 9800 X3D or a newer 9000 series CPU, you will have to update the BIOS for it to work with that CPU. So just keep that in mind. That is the reason why I personally would buy an X870 Riptide instead. Because you're getting the newer revised one also. So it probably has less. Well, I guess if you update to the latest BIOS, it really shouldn't be that different. It depends. Just look at like what the X870 Riptide has and compare that to the B650E. Most likely they're going to be almost exactly the same, but I still would probably use. Oh, you're using that? Okay, then it really doesn't matter. But I don't know. I still kind of like the idea of having the newer one, even if it is going to be on an older CPU or paired up with a Zen 4. You're getting anxious about 9950X3D pricing if 9800X3D hits $600 in Europe. I don't want. So how does that work? Because in the US, the price of the 9800X3D is still only like $479, and it never goes up. It's like they've been restocking it very frequently. You're running a Gigabyte X670, yeah, but that's different. That's a dual chipset. We're talking about single chipset boards. Yeah, so this is actually very similar to Microcenter's site in terms of how it's laid out. You have AMD CPU, Intel CPU. It's funny how they write Intel in katakana, but AMD is literally just AMD because it's an acronym. Yet Apple gets to be the full English word. Like, oh, Apple's special. It gets to be written in English letters in the actual alphabet. Everything Intel is not. Intel gets transcribed into the Japanese language and it's written that way. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Europe has a lot of VAT tax. I wonder if that's if Japan has the same sort of deal. I know in Europe you don't have to calculate tax when you see the price. Like, for instance, if I look at this, like if I look at this bundle, 49,980 yen. This includes the tax. Now, in America, the pricing is misleading to people who don't understand how, like, the prices are listed. So in America, the tax is actually not included in the actual price tag. In Japan, it is included. So what you see is how much you actually pay, which I actually really like that. I was only there for like, what, 8 days? But I got so used to that I didn't have to think about, oh, do I need to include more cash? Because like I was paying cash for pretty much like everything that I was buying. Like food and stuff in the convenience store, I would pay cash. You pay in yen, obviously. But I was like paying cash for everything. So I like the fact that if I look at an item in the store, I know exactly, okay, that is the exact amount of money that I need to give to the cashier. I don't have to think, oh, he's going to tell me that I need, like 500 yen plus another like 23 yen or whatever. Like, I didn't have to ever deal with that. That's one of the things that's annoying in the US. Now, most people don't really use cash in the US anymore unless you're a tourist, and you probably are paying with cash. And so that's really annoying because it's like, when you're shopping around and you see all the price tags, and then when you want to actually go to the checkout, it's like, oh, the actual price that you pay is not what's on the sticker. It's actually more. So that is one of the things about the US that I've heard that's kind of confusing and also, if not annoying, to foreigners when they're like touring the US and like, well, why is this price? This is like false advertising. That's not how much it actually costs. So anyway, that's TSUKUMO. That's basically like the Microcenter equivalent, or one of them. There's another one, Dospara, but this one's this one's store was easier to get to from the train station, and it was a larger store. A friend runs a computer store in Iceland, and just buying the 9800X 3D from a middleman distributor in Europe runs them like that. Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, so supply chain definitely is a big factor, it seems, with how the pricing works in different parts of the world. Yeah, but other than that, like, I don't recall. Let me see. What do they got for like? Hold on. Where is? Let me see. How much are there? Let's see what flash memory is priced like over here. No, I just want to see like what is a generic like 2 terabyte. Okay, here we go. Okay, so like a Crucial T500. This would be like a popular one that I could see someone buying to put in like a PS5 Pro. So 22,200. That's actually not that bad. So 2 terabyte. I actually want to know what that is. 22,200 yen to USD. So that's like $141. That's actually not terrible. You could still get this for probably a little bit cheaper in the US, like 130 to 140. This is about 141. But the thing is, you got to keep in mind that the yen is super weak compared to the dollar. So if this is only $141 US dollars, but to me it's like, okay, the fact that the yen is so weak, this is not like impressive. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just okay, it's like on par with the US price, which is weird, which is interesting because CPUs are way more expensive compared to in America. So it's interesting seeing the flash memory, like actual NAND flash products. The pricing is not crazy over there. Interesting. But it's not like anything that's amazing, is what I'm saying. So like, there's no reason for me to have bought an SSD in Japan when I could just get either the same price or even better pricing in America. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like your money doesn't go any further there than it could have if you bought something else, is what I'm saying. So, because like paying for like meals, like restaurants and stuff like that, man, it is way cheaper. It's way cheaper to pay for like food over there than in the US right now because the yen is so weak. Prices will go up. Was there a tariff on the European Union? Why was there a tariff on the European Union? I thought that was like a China. I thought that was China, wasn't it? Yeah, Ryzens don't come from the U.S. They come from Malaysia, I think. Don't they come from Malaysia? Ryzens don't come from the U.S. I think both of them come from Malaysia. Both Intel and Ryzen CPUs are like the final packaging is done in Malaysia. Because it says it on the CPU. You open up the CPU and you look at it, and it says like it's like designed in U.S., assembled in I think this is Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken. Well, that's pretty much all the like I guess the tech things that I did. I didn't really do a whole lot of like tech stuff while I was there. Let me see here. Do we want to run down what I actually did while I was there? Would you say it's worth? This was a question from earlier. Would you say it's worth waiting for the 9950 X3D? It depends on if you need 16 cores. If you need 16 cores, then it is worth waiting. If you don't need 16 cores, then it's not worth waiting. 16 core 32 thread or 8 core 16 threads? 8 core 16 thread is 9800 X3D. 16 core 32 thread is 9950 X3D. So it really just depends. How much will it be? Probably around $700. I would imagine 680, 679 to 699 is what I'm guessing. Is what it will be priced at. So for people outside America, it's probably gonna be more. But yeah, I would imagine anywhere from $650 to $700. Somewhere in that range would be 9950 X3D. Why? Because that was what the 7950 X3D was priced at when it launched. Panorama AIO 1200. 9950X is $700 right now in EU. Okay, well, yeah, then it's gonna be more than 700 in the EU then. It'll probably be more like 800 then. 850. I don't know. I don't know how the scaling works over there. Like once you go outside the realm of normal pricing, you know what I mean? Because we all know like the pricing gets stupid when it comes to computer hardware. Once you go outside of like for CPUs, pricing gets really dumb after $500. Because the next one up is like 650. Then the one after that is like 900 or 700, then 900, then 1500, then like 2,500, and then like $5,000. See what I mean? Like, think about that. The scaling doesn't make any sense. $1,500 for the cheapest, lowest end Threadripper. The lowest end Threadripper, the Threadripper that I have, the weakest Threadripper is starting price $1,500. Now, if you live near Microcenter, you could probably get it for like $1,300 right now, maybe even $1,200 if they have a sale. I think they have a sale going. But the cheapest Threadripper is already almost as expensive as a 4090. Then you know what? Then the medium Threadripper, the next one up, is $2,500. So that one is like RTX Titan pricing. See what I'm saying? Like the pricing just jumped so far that it's almost like Dragon Ball Z power levels. Dragon Ball Z power levels are similar to PC pricing in terms of how scaling works. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like it's like base form Threadripper is 1,500. Then it goes like Super Saiyan Threadripper is like $2,500. And then it goes like Super Saiyan 2, I guess. And then that's $5,000. And then it can go Super Saiyan 3, and that's like a, what, like a 96 core, or like a, I forgot what the core count was, but that's like, what, 10 grand or whatever? It just keeps like, it like scales so high, that's like the amount of things that you could have used that money in between the tiers of products is just unfathomable. Like, compared to like, oh, the difference in price between a B580 for $250 and a 7600 XT for like $320. So there's like a difference of $70, but they're really like it's so insignificant compared to like the price between a 4090 and a 4090 Ti, which is an ATA 6000 professional card. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking like the difference between $2,000 and $7,000. The amount of money that you could have, the amount of things you could have spent that extra $5,000 on instead of that 4090 Ti tier is way more than like the difference between, oh, I saved $70 by getting a B580 instead of a 7600 XT. You know what I mean? Like that's why that's what I mean when I say stupid pricing. Like once everything goes outside that $1,000 mark, once things go beyond $999, it's like to do like an RPG reference. It's like break damage limit skill modifier is now enabled, and now it's like now you're not really limited anymore. So it's like if 999 was the maximum damage you could do, now it's like you remove the limit, and now it's like, oh well, now we can do 5,000, now we can do 10,000. Threadripper goes power level over 9,000. Well, yeah, but it's like it's still stupid pricing. The margins that AMD is making on like Threadripper, well, they're actually not making as much money on Threadripper compared to like Epic, because they're pricing Threadripper so low compared to Epic, and a lot of people don't understand that. It's like, well, the per unit cost for a CCD that goes into an Epic CPU is significantly higher than a CCD that goes on a Threadripper, and that's significantly higher than one that goes on a regular Ryzen CPU. So you see now why AMD's chiplet design has led to their monetary success and profitability for the company, because they were able to sell essentially the same building blocks to not only regular consumers on the Ryzen stuff, but they've also been able to sell in the enterprise, where the profit margins are significantly higher. I got like something's like in my left eye. More like 7,500. Oh, for what? Oh, for like building a computer? Still using for what? What? You don't need 7,500 to build a computer. But it depends on the type of computer you're trying to build. The 7700X. 7700X is probably still going to be good until Zen 6. Although it does really depend on the type of monitor that you use. See, the thing is, those that are gaming at 4K, they're definitely more GPU bound than CPU bound in almost every scenario, except for a few instances where the difference between a 9800X 3D and like a 7700X would manifest at 4K. The scenarios where you'll notice the difference are few and far between at 4K, but only at 4K. Okay, let's change topics here. Let's talk about consoles. Everybody's favorite topic on this channel. Consoles, console gaming. So probably the biggest thing that came out in the news, tech news this week was the whole interview that Digital Foundry did with Mark Cerny. For those of you who do not know who Mark Cerny is the lead architect. He's the lead system architect, or I guess he's the principal architect for the PlayStation 5. And he previously was, I also believe he was the lead architect for the PlayStation 4. Although I'm not 100% on that. I know he was involved with the PS4. In fact, no. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Mark Cerny was the guy who was the lead on PS4. And he also did PS5. Because I know Ken Kutaragi did PS3. And that's eventually what led to his early retirement. Because the PS3 was so bad financially for Sony for so many years that he eventually just kind of like stepped down. And yeah. But anyway, Mark Cerny came in and he was like, you know what, we need to go x86 because that makes it easier for developers to port games, and just from a design standpoint, it's more streamlined. So that is the reason why the PS4 was x86 based, and then the PS5 is also x86 based. So he's actually the root cause as to why the newer consoles, so PS4 and PS5, are more similar to the PC than previous PlayStation consoles were. So it's because of him that's why that happened. But anyway, Digital Foundry did a really good sit-down interview with him. And then also, he recently released a video of him talking about the architecture. And it was a very technically oriented video. I need to finish watching that. I think I watched like 70% of it. But it was a very good, like, info dump about, like, how the upscaling for PSSR works, and like what is an equivalent teraflop number, because the teraflop number that people are using is not accurate. Like the 33 teraflop number, for example, that's not accurate for the real world performance that the console is actually capable of when it comes to game rendering. So things like that. He talked about all that stuff. So overall, I think it was a very good, interesting video, because the thing is, I think a lot of people that play games, regardless of what platform you're playing the game on, they don't think about how, like, the sort of decision making that goes on behind the scenes, that ultimately it's a two-way street between the software developers that work on the games. So think of like Epic Games, the people who do engine design, and then also the publishers and the developers, the large ones like Square Enix. In Japan, you got like Capcom as well, and then in the West, you have what is the company? Who am I thinking of? BioWare? No, not BioWare. I mean, they're one of them. Any developer really. It's a two-way street. So people like Mark Cerny on the hardware side, on the platform side, will elicit feedback on, well, what do the developers see is going to become the future? Like, what are the trends in technology on the software side, so that they can consider hardware capabilities for the next generation. And he did talk about, one of the things that was interesting to hear from him was the difference between, like, what goes into the decision for making a generational leap. So think PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 6, versus what Mark Cerny himself referred to as a mid-generation refresh, which would be like a PS4 Pro, the recent PS5 Pro, maybe a PS6 Pro. Those sort of things are like, it was interesting that he made a distinction between those. And one of the things that he pointed out was that the enhanced mid-generation consoles, like a Pro console, the emphasis from the platform provider, in this case Sony themselves, the emphasis is on prioritizing the graphics, prioritizing the GPU, not the CPU, not the SSD, none of that stuff. That's all platform related stuff. Not the memory subsystem. No, it's going to be the GPU. So that's why the Pro is basically a PS5 with a nicer graphics card. It's literally as if somebody went to the PS5 and they upgraded the GPU. They took out the RX 6700 and they put in some kind of hybrid like RX 6800. Only it's hybrid. It's got like some RDNA 4. He referred to it as future RDNA. Future RDNA. He didn't say the exact number, but he did refer to like, okay, RDNA 2 SDK libraries and stuff that was on PlayStation 5 that carries over to Pro, so that it maintains backwards compatibility, so it streamlines development. But the newer ray tracing capabilities are also there for the Pro, so you can actually turn those on, so, and get better visual quality. Only Microsoft Xbox? We don't know. What are we talking about? Sounds like a game being remastered. Wait, what are we talking about? RDNA 2 base with RDNA 4. Oh, one of the things that was implied though. One of the things that was implied in the interview and also from the video is that they're on a multi-year journey with AMD. So, PlayStation 6, okay, here they talked about codename Amethyst. And in that video, he even said the reason why the codename was Amethyst. Amethyst is kind of like a purple color, and he said the reason why they came up with the word Amethyst for the codename was because it was Sony's blue plus AMD's red, and you mix red and blue, you get like a purple color, and hence that's where the Amethyst came from. So, and he said this is a multi-year journey, which means most likely we can say with 100% certainty that the PlayStation 6 will be an AMD-based platform or console in the future, probably coming out in 2027. In the end of 2027. So it is about 3 years away. So we have to get through 2025, 2026, and pretty much all of 2027, all the way until November of 2027. So that gives him a 3-year runway. And the other thing that was pretty cool was he mentioned that they started working on the PS5 Pro in 2020 before the PS5 was even out on the market. So these things take a long time. That was it took 4 years for them to develop the PlayStation 5 Pro, all the way from the initial discussions to the launch back in, what was it, like November of the, yeah, it was like literally last month PS5 Pro came out. So it took 4 years. 4 years, maybe 4.5 years to make a PS5 Pro. So, and we're like 3 years away from PS6. So the full generational leap is probably more like a 6 year design process. He explained that, Ace. It sounds like you didn't watch the video with a comment like that. He already explained why it's Zen 2 and RDNA. You don't do the focus on the Pro is not CPU, is not platform, it's GPU. He said that. So that question was answered in the video. TSMC said they will keep their top technology home. It won't go to the US, and Intel is building in Arizona. They're planning to make chips here. What does that have to do with the PlayStation? Or is that in some other conversation? That's some sidebar conversation. Sometimes I read these comments and I'm like, I don't know, this is like way off what we're talking about. But some of these comments like steer the entire stream into a completely different tangent, though. Okay, so that was interesting. That was probably the most interesting thing that I read and watched this week. After coming back, it was pretty much this. Actually, it wasn't. Was I in Japan when I saw that video? I think it was I think I saw like the Digital Foundry one while I was still overseas, and then but I didn't actually watch. I like skimmed through it or something. But yeah, he did talk about how like 60 FPS is kind of the baseline that they try to achieve. So with the newer console, did you hear TP-Link bans in the US? I have not. I did hear something about that, but I don't know when it's going to take place or if it's actually going to happen. They were able to get 60 on most games anyway, so a better CPU would only help you. Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that the console has a unified memory architecture design, so it's a lot lower latency on the console than it is on a PC. So yeah, what Met is saying is essentially what Mark Cerny said, but that's yeah. Okay, so that covers that. I think that was really the only other thing I really wanted to talk about was that. Oh, Nintendo Switch 2. That's right, the Nintendo Switch 2. So the Nintendo Switch 2 dock may have been designed to let the console run faster, but will reportedly only output 4K resolution at 30 frames per second. Honestly, Nintendo shouldn't be targeting 4K. Like, they shouldn't be doing anything with 4K, at least not 4K native. They should definitely not be targeting 4K native with the platform that they're going to go with. They need to target 1080p and use, if they are going to do 4K, it needs to be 1080p 60 upscaled to using DLSS to upscale to 4K. Now, it's still going to be kind of blurry because that's 1080 to 4K is never good. Doesn't matter if it's ML based or not. It's still going to have artifacts. But it's at least it allows Nintendo to say we can do 4K 60 on the Switch 2. But it really needs to target 1080p 60. I'm tired of these like mobile devices trying to punch so far above their weight class when they really just need to target 1080p 60. In fact, the big consoles like the PS5 and the Xbox Series X stupidly try to target 4K 60, and it's way too much for what they can actually handle that they end up using like 720p upscaling all the way to 4K and looks like a blurry mess. Or like 1080. It's a dynamic resolution from like all the way down from 720p upscaled all the way to 4K, which is horrible. That's exactly how Final Fantasy 16 looks in the 60 FPS mode. And even then it isn't even hitting 60 all the time. So yeah, I'm tired of when these consoles, especially when like mobile devices like this tries to say, oh, we can do 4K. Like, I don't care if it can do 4K 30. They need to be doing like 1440 60 upscale from 1080 or something like that. I don't know. Like, that's no. But the Switch is actually pretty nice. I think the Switch 2, man, I am really hoping the Switch 2 is awesome. Like, the Switch OLED is really nice to look at, but I couldn't get a Switch OLED just because I'm not doing that 30 FPS stuff. So it's, yeah, they need, man, I don't know. They really need like frame gen, DLSS, and frame gen. Like, DLSS frame gen needs to save Nintendo in terms so that it's actually more on par with like the Steam Deck in terms of like functionality. OLED users are gonna hate LCD. Is it going to LCD? Is it going with LCD? Doesn't it get better battery life if it goes LCD, though? I could totally see Nintendo going back to LCD. You know why? So they can wait for OLED technology to improve even further and then launch an OLED as a mid-generation thing like they did with the Switch 1. But yeah, this is... When they claim like 4K, this sounds like clickbait. Did anybody actually say this from Nintendo, or did some reporter from WCCF Tech decide to write this because it sounds... It's clickbait. 4K shouldn't even be... 4K and Switch 2 shouldn't even be in the same sentence. Like, those two words shouldn't even be in the same conversation. Like should be like 1080p 60. If they want to be able to do 4K, then they got to use upscaling. I'm serious. They got to do upscaling. I don't want this 4K 30 stuff. It's because it says like, okay, it's gonna be like up to 30, which means it's gonna be like juddery and horrible, and the fan is gonna be like 100% maxed out, super loud. No, no. What else they got here? GeForce Now. Sony becomes the largest shareholder of From Software. The Nintendo Switch surpassed the PlayStation 2's lifetime console sales in the US. That is quite impressive, considering that the console market is shrinking, and also there's more competition in the handheld space in the form of the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally and the MSI Claw and all the other random AMD-based handhelds. 120 hertz gaming in full HD, because 120 hertz is going to kill the battery life. You got to realize something about the sort of games that people play on the Switch also. Like, most people that play games on the Switch are playing games that don't really need more than 60 frames per second. Because, first of all, they're either some kind of like Animal Crossing stuff, or like, you know, like building up a town or whatever. It's like these slow-paced games that you don't really need like super fast motion clarity with it. Although the OLED totally helps, but you don't really need to go above 60. And 120, you go above 60 and your battery life is just straight up dead. Like, you're gonna run that battery down so fast if you crank the refresh rate on the display up. And OLED also is not super energy efficient either, the higher the refresh rate goes. So, yeah, no. Personally, like, if I was going to design the Switch 2, I would do a 60 hertz display. I'd probably go LCD, not OLED, because LCD does get better battery life. And it would probably be a 1080p. Well, I don't know if I'd actually make it 1080p. I think for a modern device that's handheld, I think 1080p is good enough. That would be the ideal resolution. So 1080p, 60, LCD, that's going to get good battery life. And that's what I would do if I was designing the Switch. And the other thing too about the Switch though, it's definitely like a lifestyle difference. Like, I feel like the Switch excels in environments where it's not practical to own a giant desktop. Like, someone who's living away from their family temporarily as a student somewhere in a big metro city. Maybe they're trying to find a job. Maybe they just graduated from college or university and they're starting out in life. So they don't have a lot of stuff. They're just staying in like a 1-bedroom apartment. They don't have a lot of room. I'm thinking of people in Japan as I'm saying this, because when I was in Japan, I would see people on the trains and they're pretty much all on their phones. They're literally all playing gacha games on their phones. Everyone's logging in and doing Star Rail dailies. Or they're just texting their friends, or they're just reading something on like some website. They're just reading like a blog article. Or they're watching TikTok. Or it's just basic stuff. And occasionally you'd see somebody with a Switch and they'd be playing, and you know what type of game they're playing on the Switch? They're playing those like slow turn-based RPGs. You don't need 120 FPS to play a turn-based game while you're sitting on a train going from point A to point B. You're only going to be on the train for like 15, 20 minutes. So that's the lifestyle difference. So most people that live in that sort of environment, they're not going to have a giant desktop with a 4K monitor and 2 more 4K monitors. They're not going to have all that stuff. So it's a lifestyle difference. And I think a lot of people, they see the Switch and they're like, oh, I'm so glad I have my desktop. Yeah, well, you probably live in a completely different environment from the sort of person who would buy the Switch, because it would be completely unpractical for them to have like a desktop that you can't really You can't move it around. It's like stationary. You know, like an earthquake happens, and you never know what's gonna happen. So can't wait for the Switch 2. Yeah, I'm probably gonna get the Switch 2. I got a whole bunch of backlog of games on the Switch 1 that I never finished. I'm just waiting for the Switch 2 at this point. It can run 1080p in docked mode. See, and that's all it needs to do. It literally all it needs to do. And honestly, small handhelds, 720p is actually good enough. I would still make it a 1080p screen though, because I really want Nintendo. I know they're probably not going to do this, but I really want Nintendo to make the Switch 2 more similar to what you can do on the Steam Deck. Like give me an actual like desktop UI with the icons and the things, and like give me a web browser, an actual functional web browser, not that stupid thing where people like they like use the I'm not talking about like homebrew, I'm talking about like people who use the sign in things to pull up the browser but they don't sign in, then they use the browser to use the actual browser on the Switch. Like give me a proper web browser, a proper multimedia device that can also play Nintendo games, and I can also dock it. That's all they need to do. And that's why I wanted to have a 1080p screen, because even if the game is rendered at like 720 in the mobile mode or portable mode, that's fine. That's fine. 720p 60 on a tiny little screen, that's totally fine. I'm totally okay with that. Docked mode 1080p, that's also fine. 1080p 60, as long as it's 1080p 60, that's all they need to do. So the bar isn't my standards for like the Switch 2 are not that high. We'll hear more about HDMI 2.2 at CES. So that's like 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now. The dock could be something like an expansion pack, like N64. No, they just need a regular dock. They just need to do a regular dock. Nintendo is trying to keep a certain price point, and they know their market. Nintendo knows exactly who's going to be buying this. This is for the gamer that like plays it all. Like the gamer that wants access to all the games, the exclusive games. So not only are we talking like the PlayStation exclusive games, the multi-plat games, but also the Nintendo exclusive games. So that's what they're referring to. Or that's what they're targeting. But yeah, this is really good. I saw a bunch of people using the Switch OLED on the airplane. Like on the very long flight from America over to Japan. We're talking like this is like a 13-hour flight, guys. There's not a lot to do except sleep or watch movies on the plane or play on the Switch. So I saw a lot of people playing like on Switch OLEDs while I was on the airplane, both going to and going back. What is this? This is interesting. Japanese semiconductor firm Rapidus to rival TSMC with its 2 nanometer process, potentially seeing adoption from nvidia. Rapidus becomes the first Japanese firm to announce 2 nanometer trial production and integrate ASML's EUV equipment, potentially gaining a place in NVIDIA's supply chain. Interesting. Wow. Trial production to occur by 2025. Commercial production slated for 2027. Yeah, I do think 2027 is going to be a big year for technology. That's going to be the next, like, really big year, probably. That's going to be PlayStation 6. That's going to be probably the final version of GTA 6. And yeah, I think there's going to be probably a whole bunch of like CPUs, GPUs, and stuff that year. That's going to be like what, RTX? That's going to be RTX 60 series. RTX 60 series is 2027. So that'll be interesting. I mean, what is coming out in January? Is there anything coming out in January? Uh, RTX 50, isn't that like February? Does anybody know? Has it been leaked yet? NVIDIA GeForce 5090, along with other RTX 50 series GPUs, surfaces on Zotac website, confirms 5090 with 32 gigabytes of VRAM. Here we go. This is it. These were the 5090 and 5090D, 5080, 5070 Ti, 5070. Wow, they got all of them already? What? That much? All those? GDDR7. Oh boy, is this legit real? These were the thing. Okay. GDDR7, which has now been removed. Secondly, it was added the 32 gigabyte memory option in the filter, which confirms it is 32 gigabytes. Okay, if this thing is 32 gigabytes of RAM, you know this thing is going to be expensive, because NVIDIA and VRAM is synonymous with big money. That's big money right there. If it's 32 gigabytes of VRAM, that's big money. They charge a lot for VRAM. So that is going to be a very expensive GPU. RTX 5090 will be flagship, upgrading the VRAM from 24. This is the first time in a long time since NVIDIA is moving from 24 gigabytes to 32. They've been doing 24 gigabytes since the RTX Titan, which is a RTX 20 series GPU. So they had RTX Titan was 24 gigabytes. Then they did RTX 3090, which was 24 gigabytes. And 3090 Ti was 24 gigabytes. Then they did 4090, 24 gigabytes. So NVIDIA has been on 24 gigabytes for 3 generations in a row. 3 generations in a row. They've been doing 24 gigabytes for 6 years. 6 years. 24 gigs was the max. The max for the consumer GPU. So, if they truly are going to 32 gigabytes of VRAM, you know this is going to have a price hike. Because they were, what, $1,500 for 3090, $1,600 for 4090. That's a 24 gigabyte. The RTX Titan was $2,500 for 24 gigabyte, but that was in the past. So now it's like, okay, RTX Titan was $2,500, 24 gigabyte, 2018, 2019. This could be $2,500. So I can totally see them doing that. However, other GPUs aren't getting a memory upgrade except the 5070 Ti, which takes over the 4070 Ti. Alright, well that doesn't really matter because the 4070 Ti was a trash GPU, I think, to begin with. 4070 Ti Super kind of corrected a lot of the problems with this GPU. So now the 5070 Ti is probably more like a 4070 Ti Super replacement. And then RTX 5060, 5060 Ti weren't available on the site, which could be because the GPUs are such a launch date. That is correct. Both these GPUs will feature the same GB206. Why are they talking about 5060? Nobody cares. 5060? Like, who cares? Okay. Okay. So it's happening. It's really happening. The 5090 is 32 gigabytes. Wow. It's gonna be expensive. That's all I can say. This thing's gonna be expensive. You can pretty much buy an entire computer minus the GPU for the same amount of money. Or no, with a lower end GPU for the same amount of money. We might when that GPU when we get closer to the 5090 launch, we'll do like a PC part picker, build a PC with the whatever the price of the 5090 is. I want to try to price an entire gaming computer that is at the price point of the 5090 without including the 5090. So it's like, how much computer can you build for the amount of money that it would cost for just a 5090? Because I'm pretty sure you could build an entire gaming PC with the amount of money it would cost to buy just a 5090. The 5090 is not a gaming GPU, it's a data center GPU. See, okay, see, that's the Kool-Aid. That's the Kool-Aid. That's exactly, you're doing exactly what Jensen Huang wants you to do. That's the messaging. They want to tell the narrative. Because think about it, if they want to price this thing sky high to increase their profit margins and get their stock price to keep going up and up, they're going to spin it like, hey, this is expensive, but that's because it is sophisticated. It is not just a gamer's GPU. It is for machine learning and artificial intelligence and generative AI. It is meant for these advanced workloads that are so big brain that you have to justify the price. You have to basically invest in the product so that you can achieve this higher plane of existence. That is exactly how they're going to spin the narrative on the 5090 so they can justify the price hike. That is what they're going to do. They're not going to be like, oh, you think NVIDIA is going to be like 8K gaming? 8K gaming? They learned that they're not going to do that again. That did not work. That's why the 3090 was kind of made fun of for a while when it first tried to launch at $1,500 as the BF GPU, the big ferocious GPU, 8K GPU, and then that didn't work. So then they didn't do that. With 4090, they basically was like, this is the 4090. It can game at 4K. It's 4K gaming. And it has frame generation and all this great stuff. And that's it. $1,600. $1,599. That's why it was like looked at in a more positive light compared to 3090 with its, BF GPU, 8K gaming, $1,500. Like, no one cared. That's why, like, see, marketing is everything. So this time around, if they want to price this thing Titan class price, then they're going to be like, no, this is not a gaming product, guys. It's like, yes, you can game on the 5090, but it is meant for other things, higher level things, not just gaming, not just Fortnite at 1080p low settings. It's like, it's not meant to do that, but technically you could do that if you wanted, but that's not the intended use case. So that's how they're going to spin it. I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to do. They have to do that. There is no competition from AMD as well. And when NVIDIA is already selling the 4090 for $2,000, why would NVIDIA set an MSRP below what? Wait, who's saying that the MSRP is going to be less? Was someone saying that in a comment that it was going to be like that? Nah, why would it be that? Why would they sell a 32GB GPU for under $2,000? What will be the point of doing that? 3090 Ti's MSRP was already $2,000. All the leaks say $1,899. What leaks? $1,899? I don't see that. $1,899? I don't see that. I see Asus launches G16 gaming laptop with $18.99. Beware of the Ryzen scam selling for $200. Yeah, I don't see any leaks on pricing. Do you understand how hard it's going to be to buy a 5090? Wait, just like how 4090 came out at 16 and never went below 2,000? Well, mine was 1,600, but I got the Best Buy one, that's why. But yeah, most people paid closer to like 1,900 to 2,100. 2,300 for some people who bought like a Strix and then had to pay tax. What are we talking about? 4090. 4090 was not the full die. Are you you're talking about the workstation thing? You're talking about the 48 gigabyte data center thing. Yeah. That's the full die. So this 5090 is not the full die. If the 5090 is the full die, it's not going to be 5090. I'll tell you that. That much I know. That I know for a fact. I don't know what the price will actually be. I don't think anybody actually knows what the real price will be. I don't even think a lot of people at nvidia even know what the actual price will be. If the rumors about how they can they can choose pricing like literally days before launch, or days before, not the launch, but days before the product announcement, the actual unveiling. What do you mean by the full die? I guess we're talking, that's probably some sidebar conversation again in the chat. So, yeah, why? Okay, well. What do we got here? GeForce Blackwell gaming GPU surfaces over EEC listing. Validating presence of several models. Is this the Zotac thing? Oh, Palette. Palette is listing a bunch of them. Whoa, whoa, whoa. 5090 Ti Super. What is this? What is this? I think these are just placeholders. I feel like some of these companies, they just put all these names down just so they're registered, so that in the event that there is a future product that uses one of these SKUs or these names, it's already registered. But yeah, look at this. This has RTX 5050, 5050 Ti, 5050 Super, 5050 Ti Super, 5060, 5060 Ti, 5060 Super, 5060 Ti. Yeah, someone literally just like put every single combination that they could think of, all the way up to like look at how ridiculous this is. 5090, 5090 Ti, 5090 Super, 5090 Ti Super. You really think there's going to be 4 different 5090 SKUs? These are straight up placeholders. Yeah, those are just tagging like potential product names. Those aren't legit like actual product names. I really want to know though, like what is going to be the main selling point of this thing? Because if it's just going to be, oh, it has better tensor cores for AI, then 5090 is probably going to be a big skip for a lot of people. If that's literally all it has. Like, what is the RTX 50 new like, what does it actually have? Yeah, I don't know. There's not a whole lot. There has been so little info about the 5090 or like Blackwell in general for the consumer market that I don't even know what the actual talking points are besides, oh, it's got 32 gigabytes of GDDR7. DLSS 4. DLSS4. What is that? Like, it's not, there's like no, okay, well, WCCF Tech apparently has like nothing on that. DLSS4. There's like no recent news. I guess these websites don't have anything about that. Oh well. Well, I mean that pretty much covers that. So it's not that much longer to wait. It's literally what, like 3 weeks. So I'm pretty sure like after the holidays, the leaks that come out are gonna be more accurate because it's at that point it'll literally be like a week before CES. So I really think we're gonna learn, and not that much longer. We're gonna learn really fast what Blackwell is capable of in terms of the features, because I don't know how they're gonna sell this if they're gonna price this over $2,000. Now, and the other thing too is like the reason why I'm focusing on the features is because that has typically been Nvidia's strong point, and that is usually what they have used to get people to continue buying their GeForce cards and steer them away from potentially switching to AMD unless the user of the Nvidia card had a bad experience or whatever, and then they just ended up switching because of that. But the typically it's the features that hold people to Nvidia. So, and that's going to become more relevant at the lower end of the market as opposed to the upper end, because the upper end, yeah, you're getting your big GPU with more VRAM and all this stuff. So that's kind of expected. But what are they going to do at the mid-range, lower end, and I guess the high end? So like, what is the 5080 going to do that differentiates it from the 4090 and the AMD cards in that price range, like the XTX and those things? Like, how is the 5080 going to change things up? What does it do to justify like $1,200 or whatever? Same thing with 5070, 5070 Ti. Like, what do they actually offer if the VRAM doesn't scale compared to what the previous generation had? You know, like, how are they going to entice people to upgrade to these lower end cards, these upper mid range, high end performance tier, whatever you want to call it, basically the 70 and the 80 class cards? Like, how do you get someone to upgrade unless they're just on a really old GPU and they just need to upgrade? You know, like, besides that person, how do you entice an enthusiast to upgrade to a 5080, for example? Neural rendering is what just came out news-wise for 50 series. Okay, like, that doesn't, I mean, isn't that just the same as, like, machine learning? It's just a slightly newer algorithm or something. I don't know. I hope we get upgraded upscaling and frame interpolation, personally. Yeah, I think it's gonna be all software stuff. It's because there's no leaks. There's like nothing talking about this stuff. So it's like, we just kind of have to wait, I guess. Well, what is neural rendering if it's not machine learning based? Pretty much all AI tasks are machine learning based. So if it has anything to do with AI, then it's going to be ML based. Selling point is to render 4K without upscaling. Is that like a confirmed statement? Like, or is that something that you're expecting them to say? Render 4K without upscaling. Yeah, that's just native rendering. That's just native rendering. Can you teach me what it does? Like, what? Neural rendering? I don't know what neural rendering is. I'm not the one that said it. Neural rendering. Oh, okay. I don't know what that is. I assume it's some kind of ML thing, like some upscaler or something. It sounds like another marketing term for like some form of machine learning using tensor cores to do some sort of mathematical operation. That's all it sounds like to me. What was that one game besides Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Well, oh, Indiana. Did I talk about Indiana Jones on the previous episode? I think we covered it, didn't we? I think we covered Indiana Jones. I think that game came out either like right before I left or it was like right after I left. I can't remember. But Indiana Jones was a pretty good game that came out. I can't remember if that was before or after the B580. Everything from the last 2 weeks is a blur to me because of the trip overseas. Okay, so that's good to hear that it was actually a pretty good game. Yeah, the Indiana Jones, the games that come out in December are always in a weird spot. I feel like they're often forgotten. Like Avatar Frontiers of Pandora came out in December of last year, and that was actually a pretty good game too. It was a little bit boring and repetitive, but if you like that style of gameplay, I think it was a pretty good game. And visually, it was a very good game. Technically speaking, it was a very good game from a graphics rendering point of view and the actual options they had for the GPU settings. But the thing is, like the Game Awards just happened recently. That's another thing that I missed. And Avatar wasn't even mentioned at all. Technically, it's supposed to be considered for stuff, but I guess it just didn't really. It was because it was so far back. There was recency bias, I guess, or I don't know. Like, it didn't get nominated for anything. Maybe it was just not. It was just mediocre. Who knows? But it was a game that came out in December, so it was past the cutoff for the Game Awards for basically any website that was doing or any media publication that was doing Game Awards, not just the Game Awards. But like it's just forgotten. I feel like Indiana Jones coming out in December is gonna suffer the exact same fate. Like it's a cool game, it's a relatively good game, it plays well, it's fun, but it came out in December. So fast forward to next year when they're doing the cutoff for Game Awards for 2025. I bet Indiana Jones isn't even gonna show up. It's probably going to be completely forgotten. So I guess the rule of thumb is if you're a game developer, don't release your game in December because everyone in the media will forget about it. Because that's what it seems like. When was the last time a game came out in December and won Game of the Year? The following year. Onimusha's coming back? Wait, for real? Wait, what? What? Onimusha's coming back for real? Onimusha Wave of Sword announced for PC and consoles with a 2026. Oh, but that's so far away. 2026. What? That's like at least a year and a half away at this point. That is good to see that it's coming back though. That is definitely. Oh, you know why I don't know this? Because I didn't watch the Game Awards because I wasn't around to watch it. Oh man. Yeah, I need to go back and watch. So the only cool that is the thing with the Game Awards. Like most people are always willing to watch the Game Awards, not just for the who actually wins, because a lot of people don't care who's actually winning what award because they don't agree with who they chose or what. But the world premieres, the reveals for next year and the future. Those are the things that people always seem to want to get out of watching Game Awards. So Onimusha was one of them. I think there was a Monster Hunter one. What else was there? Like if somebody here watched the Game Awards, like what all did they reveal besides Onimusha? Anything? Wasn't there like a GTA 6 trailer or something, like a newer one? Kamiya returned to Capcom and making Okami 2. Oh, okay. There was no GTA 6. Oh, Witcher. Wait, Interstellar? Like Interstellar, like the movie? Wait, Interstellar's getting a game, or is Interstellar getting like a live action series or something, like a TV drama? Outer World 2? So Interstellar is what? Like a oh, it's a game. Interesting. Do you get to go to Miller's planet and surf the wave from the gravitational tidal forces or whatever? Virtua Fighter 6? Hmm. Oh, didn't wasn't Clive for Tekken 8, right? Cuz I saw Clive is in Tekken 8 now. I assumed that there was some kind of character reveal at the VGA or the Game Awards. I used to call it the VGA, the Video Game Awards. Now it's just Game Awards. Yeah, Clive. Man, was everybody happy about that? Or was everybody complaining about that? I mean, I can see him kind of fitting. It is weird how he's using his sword when everyone else is fighting with their fists. However, he's not the first character to do that. Yoshimitsu fights with his sword in the game, and he's been doing that. He's been breaking the rules since the first Tekken. Like if it's like no weapons and you can only use your fists and your feet to fight, apparently Yoshimitsu didn't get the memo and he brought a katana to a fist fight. So, and he's been doing that since like the very first Tekken. So I guess Clive just walks in with his sword. He's like, well, I mean, that guy has swords, so I can bring mine, right? So people are mad. Yeah, I assumed that was going to be a lot of that. That's funny. Yeah, well, the thing is, so Noctis was the main character from Final Fantasy 15, and he was in Tekken 7 as a guest character. And so the thing that people probably, unless people who play a lot of Tekken would probably understand this or know this, so Noctis's fighting style is retained in Tekken 8 as a different character. I forget, it's the French guy. The French, like, military commando captain guy, whatever. The dude with the sunglasses. You know what I'm talking about? The French dude, the new guy for Tekken 8. That guy's moveset is kind of based off of Noctis's moveset from Tekken 7. So they were able to preserve that fighting style for the people who mained Noctis. They were able to use that. I forget the new character's name. I never used that guy. I mean, I test him out like when the game was new, but I don't actually main that guy. So I don't know his name. I just know he speaks French. That's all I remember. And he's like a military dude. But that guy basically has Noctis's style of fighting. And then, so I guess Clive is bringing like another new original style, but it's basically, it's somewhat based off of his move set from 16. Project Century. I typed it in and like literally nothing came up. How did it come up with this? Oh, never mind. That's it. Wait, Project Century. Oh, that's it, right? The Virtua Fighter. Oh wait, no. New Virtua Fighter. Oh, it's a different thing. Project Century announced by Like a Dragon series developer. Oh, so that means it's gonna be like like a. That looks like it's kind of like that one game, Ghost of Tsushima. Which quickly became one of the most prolific game development studios around. Oh, that's right. The Hawaii game is coming out soon, right? Like the Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. This is, when is this? This is like February or, yeah, February 21st. Yeah. Yeah, I saw some advertisements for this when I was over there. But this is different from yeah, no, I know this is different. Like Project Century is like some newer thing, like future project that they're working on. Because the Yakuza, this game is basically done already. It's just waiting to release. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, Clive. Clive didn't seem like he was based off of Noctis, from what I saw. Noctis's style is basically that French guy that's in the game already. I think Clive's is more original. I think that's what they were going for in the first place. They weren't just trying to bring back Noctis. I think they were trying to bring a new style to the game. What is the name of that guy now? I gotta look that up. Tekken 8 new characters. Victor Chevalier? Victor Chevalier is basically Noctis. His fighting style is Noctis' style. Or some variation of it. But no, I don't think Clive's going to play anything like Noctis. I think he's going to be completely different. I mean, the few times that I used Victor, I was thinking, man, this is basically Noctis. Just a different skin, and they've changed a lot of things, but it's still fundamentally Noctis' style. Like, all the teleporting around, and like, he closes the distance. That's the same as Noctis. I definitely am someone who doesn't play a lot of Virtua Fighter. Like, the last Virtua Fighter that I played was, I think, Virtua Fighter 4 on the PS2. I remember, was it Virtua Fighter 5? Virtua Fighter 6? Which one was the one that had the short guy on the PS3? It was wasn't it one of the PS3 launch titles? Virtua Fighter 5 or Virtua Fighter 6? No, Virtua Fighter 6 is what they're working on, right? No. Oh, man, I can't remember. So that shows how little I know about Virtua Fighter. I think Virtua Fighter 5 was the one on PS3 as a launch title. And it had no online. I think it had no online. The very first Virtua Fighter 5. It was a PS3 launch title. And I remember there was one, like, it was like a Mexican wrestler with the, what do they call it? The Mucho Libro or something, like, Mucho Libre, those guys, you know what I'm talking about? Mexican wrestling with the mask. And he was like he was a shorter character. But he was a new original character. New original fighting style in the game. I think that's Virtua Fighter 5, and that was a PS3 launch title. And that was probably the last one. And I never had that game, but I think I played it in like a GameStop back in the day. Oh, is there like one? I guess not. Stalker 2. I didn't play that. Oh, the ARC. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, this is the thing that I saw. I keep getting notified for this thing because this is a beta test. So it's like, because I do live streaming, they're like, do you want to live stream this game? Because there's no restrictions on what you can show, apparently. I keep getting notified for this. I don't know. I'm trying not to get into like more gacha games, if that makes sense. I'm trying to wind down on gacha games and like eventually phase them out of my library. Really the only one that I still log in and just collect the daily free gems or whatever is Star Rail and sometimes Genshin Impact. It's funny because every time I log into Genshin Impact, after not logging in for like a month and a half, they give me the welcome back thing, so then I have to log in for like 7 days in a row to get all the rewards. So I have like so much of that just stockpiled. But this is the next kind of like the next big gotcha game that's coming out, I guess, next year. But there's an open beta test for this coming real soon. Sign up period starts on December 14th. And basically, the system specs that you need to be either a Intel Core i5 CPU from 2018 or equivalent. So it'll be like what, Zen 2, like a Ryzen 3000 series, nvidia GeForce 1060 or the equivalent, which would be like an RX 480. And the recommended, they don't tell you the resolution though for that. Recommended is either the 10700K or equivalent, so that'd basically be like a Zen 3. And then the nvidia GeForce 2060 or equivalent. That's not a lot of GPU. But this game looks like it's going to be cel-shaded art, so it's probably not going to be very high polygon count, which means it's not going to need an insane GPU. Plus, it's mobile game first, but it also has like a PC client that's going to be able to run. So very much like Genshin Impact in terms of the specs, most likely. I feel like a lot of these games, these live service games, are targeting like middle of the road PCs and anywhere from like 5-year-old smartphones to newer. I feel like anyone with a 4-year-old smartphone could probably run the mobile version of this just fine. And anyone who's on a 5-year-old PC can also run the PC version of this just fine. So, yeah. I don't know. Like, for those of you that play gacha games, what was the best gacha game that came out this year? Or, like, what was the best mobile game that had a PC client that was, but it was a gacha game? If you know what I'm saying. Because I didn't play a lot of them. I think the only new one that I tried was Wuthering Waves. I played Wuthering Waves for like 3 weeks and then just quit. And then never went back. So I played it long enough to like see the banner change once. And then I quit. Because the first banner was that dude with the green dragon. Then the second banner was the girl with like the puppet strings or whatever, and that was basically it. Like I played the game long enough to see the banner, the limited banner, change over, and then I'm like, I'm done. I quit, and that was it. So I'm trying to not like get super into those type of games. No RAM. No, did they list the RAM? No, they did list the RAM. 16 gigabyte for minimum, 32 gigabyte recommended. Anata. I've heard of that. What is that? Ananta? Anata? Anata? Or wouldn't be Anata, would it? That's what? I think I have heard of that, actually. WoW 32, yeah. 32 gigs of RAM, recommended. I think this game will be just as easy to run as Star Rail. I don't know. I still feel like Hoyoverse is like way ahead of everybody else. Wuthering Waves was okay. Like, it was an okay game. I know some people that still play it and they think it's like better than Genshin Impact. It is totally not better than Genshin Impact. Like, it is flashy, but it is very repetitive, and the difference between Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves is Genshin Impact has a much better designed world. Like, the world that you explore is so much more engaging, more like a Legend of Zelda game world, whereas Wuthering Waves is a generic like MMO flat plane with some hills and you run around and there's some like puzzle solving and stuff. It's very boring. by comparison. Although the combat is flashier and more because it's a newer game, Wuthering Waves has more interesting combat, and the skill ceiling for the combat system is probably higher for like skill expression, for example, compared to Genshin Impact. However, the other thing that Genshin Impact has, which I think goes a very long way in retaining the players, is it has a much better soundtrack. Like Genshin Impact's music is like so good. It is if that game came out this year, that game could have easily won best soundtrack, but because it's an ongoing game, and the thing is, they keep making new music for the game. Like literally every year, they make new music. They compose all these new orchestral themes for the new different parts of the game that they add. So Genshin Impact, man, like Hoyoverse is like on a whole nother level for the music compared to these other gacha games, these newer gacha games. Another game that came out this year from Hoyoverse, which I did not play, was Zenless Zone Zero. That one I did not play, but I listened to some of the soundtrack to that game, and yeah, it's on par with Genshin and Star Rail. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, Hoyoverse is literally hiring like all the best musical talent in China. Like they're just straight up hiring all the best people. They had Yupen Chang do like Mondstadt, Liyue, and Inazuma, and then I think he consulted, but he was departing from them during the Sumeru production. So, but I think he had some work in there. But yeah, like the music of Genshin is like so top tier, straight up S tier for like video game soundtrack. Anything that Hoyoverse puts out is just like so top tier, man. Like, and it sets the bar for these gacha games because these live service games, it gives you a sense of quality. Like the difference between playing a gacha game that has an S tier soundtrack and a game like another gacha game that has similar graphics, similar gameplay, but like average music or like a lack of a lot of musical variety. There's a big difference in the actual experience. Like it goes a far way. It goes a long way. Oh, Infinite Nikki. Infinite Nikki was another. Oh, that's another one that came out. Yeah, that was later. That was more recent. That one, see, the thing about Infinite Nikki, that one doesn't have, as far as I know, that doesn't have like other playable characters though, right? Like that one's literally just the one girl, and then there's the pet, and you're just exploring. The same thing like with Genshin, except there's no other characters. So to me, that one would get very repetitive very quick, because it lacks variety. There's no character variety like there is in the other games. So I don't know. Infinite Nikki was interesting, but I just don't know, like, longevity-wise, I don't know what they're going to do with that game as a live service game. Ananta. Oh, I think I saw, like, a trailer for this. Yeah, this is a gacha game, right? This is not GTA. You said anime GTA. This looks like a gacha game. This straight up looks like a gacha game. This has to be a gacha game. This is 100% a gacha game. There's no way this is a GTA. This is no anime GTA. This is 100% a gacha game. I see CN for the voice, so I know this is a gacha game. Yeah, but it's still a gacha game. Genshin Impact is an open world. So is Wuthering Waves and Infinite Nikki. So it's another live service game. Yeah, but see, the thing is, live service games are the majority of the gaming market now. It sounds so weird to say that, but that is actually so true. The other thing, too, that now that I'm talking about live service games, when I was in Japan, I was surprised about, like, the amount of creep into the market that the gacha games have done. Like, these modern mobile gacha games from Chinese game developers, it has infected the Japanese gaming market. Like, for real, like, legit. You go into like any Akihabara like gaming store, and there is Genshin. There's gonna be at least Genshin Impact, if not other Chinese gacha merchandise. Merchandise. We're talking about like keychains of your favorite characters, the acrylic stands, maybe even figurines. Like, I was surprised. Like, Genshin Impact, there's so much. Star Rail is like off the chain in terms of like so much like power creep into the merchandise market now. You see like ads, big like billboard things, like digital signage screens. Genshin Impact is still being advertised. I was surprised to see in Akihabara on the main street the very first like season 1 Genshin Impact sign is still there, and it's been there since like 2021. So live service is like majority of gaming now. It's like legit the majority of the market because most people are playing games on cell phones, smartphones now. So mobile gaming is the dominant factor. Like, that is the big money maker. That is your what I call run rate revenue. That is your run rate revenue as a gaming company, a large company like HoYoverse, Square Enix, Capcom, you name it, Bandai Namco, whatever, all of them, like their bottom line is held up by all the live service games. So regardless of what your opinion is on live service games, these are the sort of games that allow companies to accumulate, or I guess they can make big bets. They can do these experimental games that could turn out to be AAA games, that could either flop financially or succeed financially. But without these live service games, they cannot take the risk because the opportunity cost is so high now to develop these big AAA games. Like, for example, like Final Fantasy 16. Making a game like Final Fantasy 16 or The Witcher 4, those type of games are so rare now because they take so long to make, and the developer themselves are taking a huge gamble on whether or not the game is going to be successful because the gaming audience changes over time. Like, this has been a big problem for Square Enix because the Final Fantasy franchise today is not nearly as popular globally as it was, say, 10 years ago. Because the gaming population has gotten older, it's gotten larger, so it's more spread out in terms of the age ranges. Like, the younger gamers, they're not aware of the Final Fantasy legacy, so that franchise doesn't really speak to them. Their style of like gaming tastes are different from older generations, so there's stuff like that makes it way more risk intensive to to invest in making these type of AAA games, and that's the reason why the live service games are they're a much safer bet, but they can also be a huge gamble if the company's not well established. So that's why I feel like HoYoverse is probably the poster child for the gacha market, for modern gacha gaming, because they kind of revolutionized things with Genshin Impact. Like, that game was so different from every other gacha live service game when it came out that I feel like every year we're guaranteed to see at least one, if not multiple, Genshin Impact clones from these other developers. This Anata game literally looks like it's going to be another Genshin Impact competitor. This straight up looks like a Genshin Impact competitor. Especially when it was mentioned that it's open world. Well, if it's open world, then it's basically like Genshin Impact. Playing some old PS2 games are like breath of fresh air. Yeah, there was another game that came out recently that I might do a live stream on tomorrow. I saw a lot of product promotion for it while I was in Japan. Fantasian Neo Dimension. This game came out, I think, right before I went to Japan. It was like a few days before I flew out. Yeah, Fantasian Neo Dimension is another game that I will probably also... Well, I already have it, so I'll probably be playing it. That one's not a live service. That one is more like an old school RPG with handmade dioramas. Like, it's interesting how they made that game, so I'm definitely probably going to live stream that at least once to showcase it. Fantasian Neo Dimension, though, that's going to be a pretty good one. We already went over all of that, all the juicy rumors on 5090. So the Path of Exile 2. Yeah, see, I'm not really into Diablo style gameplay, so that one's probably gonna be a pass on me. Like, I'm probably not gonna play that. But yeah, I know a lot of people that are playing it, and from what I can tell, it's good. The Elden Ring, Night Rain. I don't know exactly what that is. Like, a lot of people are speculating. I know what it is, but I don't know exactly what type of game it is. Because right now there's a lot of speculation that Elden Ring, Night Rain, maybe I'm behind on this, but from what I understand on Elden Ring, that is not necessarily a sequel. That is more like some kind of newer style game. Some people are saying it's a battle royale. A lot of people are saying it's a battle royale because they saw the blue thing closing in, like on PUBG, and they assume that it's a battle royale. It's team-based, so it's like squad-based. So you can have like 3 people. I don't know what the party size is. Maybe 3 people. From Software typically does 3 people. So it'll be teams of 3. Maybe there's going to be teams of 4. Who knows? But it's going to be some kind of like co-op Elden Ring. I don't know exactly how it's going to work. But I think it's going to be an interesting game. And it's about time that we saw From Software do something other than the traditional Fantasy Souls RPG adventure and try to branch out and do something different. So it's probably going to be some kind of battle royale thing. If you put a PCIe 4 drive in a PCI 5X2, would it run at PCI 5X2? Or it would run at PCI 4X2. Okay, I guess that's pretty much it. So there really isn't too much to talk about. We covered everything. We covered the B580, the 50 series rumors, the upcoming games and stuff. So really the only games that I'm anticipating or I'm like looking forward to is Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. I will probably be playing this. Final Fantasy VII on PC. Maybe I'll probably get, although I've already played through the whole thing on the console. I'll probably end up getting Rebirth again, though, on PC, just to see how it runs and how it's different, but it's basically the same game. And then the only other one besides those two, for me, is going to be Monster Hunter Wilds. This is going to be Monster Hunter Wilds. So, I don't know, maybe I'm going to try to stay away from live service games, especially the live service gacha games, which are pretty much almost all of them. But yeah, that's probably going to be it for this live stream. So I will probably do a weekend gaming live stream. It'll probably be Fantasia and Neo Dimension or something else or something similar. But stay tuned for that. That will probably be tomorrow evening or the following evening. And then we're going to get back to the original schedule of uploading videos again. So the next one will probably be either memory overclocking or 9800X3 overclocking. One of those two. So stay tuned for that. So thanks everybody for tuning in. And if you are new to the channel, do get subscribed if you like these sort of open forum discussions. We do have a Discord, and the people in there are pretty good at helping you out if you have like tech-related questions and I'm not able to answer them. Oh, the live stream. So the live stream for the Thursday one, like this one, Tech Thursdays, it is 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. So that's, I guess, Central would be 8, and then Mountain Time would be 7 p.m. So that's the same time every Thursdays. So, and the weekend ones are usually the same start time, or they're earlier. They're usually like an hour earlier, or they're the same start time as the Tech Thursday stream. But anyway, that's going to be it. And the next episode is going to be the very last episode of 2024, and it will be the day after Christmas. So anyway, guys, happy holidays, and I will see you either tomorrow on the gaming live stream or on the next episode of Tech Thursdays a week from now. Until then, take care, and I'll see you then. Thanks.